The United States men's national team. By now, you know we won. But it isn't that we won. Okay, we said Friday on the show, we think we'll win. It was how we won. That was the smoothest first half, the slickest, the best aesthetic, the most creative. I mean, until Friday, I always thought we labored to score goals. Even when we won, right, we wouldn't get that many great looks, certainly in open play. Highly dependent on counterattacking and set pieces and corner kicks. But the ability to dominate possession, get great looks. You know, I always felt when I watched soccer, United States, we had some athletes, but we were sort of wooden, really, where we were a little rigid. And we'd get opportunities and we wouldn't take advantage of them. And Paraguay, by the way, beat Argentina and Brazil in qualifying, so they're more than capable. Not a dynamic offense, but more than capable. But great athletes, here's what they have in common. You can go to Mike Trout in his prime, Mookie Betts, MJ, Dirk Nowitzki scoring. Great athletes make plays look easy. It's like, man, and that's practice and repetition and skill. And you can also tell from our attacking style that our coach believes in us. For years and years, everybody wanted to blame Klinsmann, Berhalter. The truth is, our coaches did not employ an attacking style because we couldn't. We'd get burned. We had to play counterattack, conservative, rock fight, win 1-0, set up pieces. That's not what this team is. Fowler and Balogun is a remarkable striker. And then you have Pulisic splitting the defense, has always been really playmaker and goal scorer, but primarily a great point guard who needs a guy that he can set up and depend on. Balogun had 2 goals. We haven't had a multiple World Cup goal scorer since 1930.
All right. Let's get into it. I had a good laugh earlier, and I'm still kind of chuckling about it, because Colin just went and listed what has to be the most bizarre, random assortment of athletes you could possibly name in one breath. I mean, I'm sitting there listening, and he drops this line about how certain players just have that gift where they make the most difficult, high-level plays look ridiculously simple and effortless. And I'm thinking, okay, here we go, he's about to rattle off the usual suspects. I fully expected to hear the big, obvious names, you know, the Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomeses, maybe even a Wembanyama thrown in for good measure. But no. Instead, it was just chaos. He just blurted out, Mike Trout and Mookie Betts. And I'm sitting there, completely caught off guard, thinking to myself, wait, what? Where are we right now? What sport are we even talking about? And then, to top it all off, he throws in MJ and Dirk Nowitzki. It's like he was pulling names out of a hat. It was so unexpected and so all over the place that I couldn't help but find it hilarious. Honestly, I was just completely lost, trying to figure out the thread connecting these legends from completely different worlds. But moving on from that, I want to kick this off by posing a question directly to you all. It's something I've been turning over in my head, and I'm genuinely curious about your take. How would you feel about me diving into some soccer content, specifically breaking down the World Cup matches? It's a topic I've been a bit hesitant to tackle, mainly because of this whole cultural phenomenon that happens every 4 years. And I've been making a lot of tongue-in-cheek remarks about it, but there's a lot of truth to it. It's that sudden, almost performative shift where it feels like everyone and their grandmother suddenly becomes a soccer expert overnight. You know what I'm talking about. The moment the World Cup rolls around, people who haven't watched a single club match all year are suddenly spouting off about tactics and formations and specific players. It's a funny and predictable cycle. But look, I'm not going to be a hypocrite about it. I actually sat down and watched the game the other night, and I have to be honest, I genuinely had a great time with it. It was an entertaining product. It's not like I'm a complete novice to the sport. I played soccer at a fairly competitive level when I was younger. I'm not trying to claim I was some sort of elite, world-class prospect or anything like that, nothing too crazy. But I definitely spent a significant chunk of my youth on the pitch, playing a lot of matches, so I understand the game on a fundamental level and can appreciate the skill and athleticism involved. So, I'm more than happy to sit down and discuss it, to break down the plays and talk about the flow of the game and all of that good stuff. And honestly, I really did enjoy watching this particular match, because it was just a great game of soccer. The intensity was there from the very first whistle. Both teams came out incredibly aggressive, and the final scoreline, a decisive 4-1 victory, reflected that attacking mentality. Colin made a really good point in his segment about the philosophy of the team. They essentially say, screw it, let's just go for it. They take risks, they're not afraid to push numbers forward and really test the opposition. They don't resort to that conservative, defensive style that can sometimes suck the life out of the sport. Even the broadcast crew was highlighting that aggressive approach, acknowledging that it's a high-risk, high-reward style of play. And it makes for a fantastic spectacle. It's genuinely thrilling to watch when a team is playing with that kind of reckless abandon. However, watching that match also brought into stark focus one of the aspects of soccer that I absolutely cannot stand, one of its fundamental weaknesses. And I'm talking, of course, about the theatricality, the embellishment, the sheer audacity of the flops. You think the flopping is bad in the NBA? You think Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a master of drawing fouls? Oh, you have no idea. You haven't seen anything until you've watched a World Cup match. In soccer, it's on a completely different planet. Every time one of these guys goes down, it's not just a foul, it's a full-blown tragedy. These guys react to the slightest contact as if they've not only suffered a career-ending injury but a life-ending. G1. The histrionics are just brutal to watch, and it really does detract from the game. It's the one thing that tests my patience every single time. And don't even get me started on that subplot where the official got the player completely wrong and carded the wrong guy because of a mistaken identity. That was just an absolute circus. So yeah, I'm perfectly willing to dive into the analysis if you guys want that. But for the purposes of this particular video, what I really want to do is twofold. First, I want to get a sense of what you all are thinking, and second, I just want to talk about the overall vibe. I want to talk about the felt experience. I'll be straight with you, in this specific moment, right now, going too deep into a granular, XSNOS breakdown of a single game just doesn't resonate with me on a personal level. It misses the bigger picture. For me, this entire experience was simply a phenomenally fun way to spend a Friday night. It was just pure entertainment. What made it even better was the atmosphere. The crowd was absolutely electric, off the charts insane. The energy in that stadium, even through the TV, was palpable. But beyond just the match itself, it's been incredibly heartwarming to scroll through social media and see all the stories from people who are visiting from other countries. Reading their posts, hearing them talk about how much they love the USA, how much they're enjoying all the different cities they're visiting, and how incredibly see and welcoming everyone has been, that has been one of the most awesome and unexpectedly moving parts of this whole thing for me. It's been really, really cool to witness. And then, of course, you have the spectacle of the event itself. Watching our national team not just win, but do it in such spectacular fashion, on such a massive global stage, it was incredible. It felt like a moment. The emotion was so visible. You could see it on the faces of the announcers and the broadcasters, not just the ones doing the play-by-play, but the analysts and hosts doing the pre-game, halftime, and post-game shows. They were completely blown away by the performance, by the occasion. It was evident that they were feeling it just as much as the fans in the stands. And to be a small part of that, watching it all unfold in real time, it's just a really cool, unifying feeling. Even Colin himself touched on this in his segment, and it resonated with me. He used the word we. And it got me thinking about how rare that is. When do we, as a collective national audience, ever get to watch a sporting event and hear the commentators use language like that? It's usually the Chiefs or the Eagles, right? It's always they. I recently did a clip about the Chicago Bears, and the narrative is always they need to do this, or they need to fix that. There's no sense of collective ownership. It's just the players and the organization. But here, on this absolute national stage, it was different. It was we. It felt like we were all in it together, pulling in the same direction. It immediately took me back to the feeling I had during the last Team USA basketball run. I know I love basketball, so it's obviously a lot easier for me to get swept up in that, especially with legends like Steph, KD, and LeBron on the court. It's a more straightforward passion for me. But I remember feeling that genuine, deep-seated excitement. I remember feeling an actual sense of pride. A feeling of gratitude. It was this weird sensation where I looked at those guys on the court and thought, they represent me. They are me. It's like they were playing for all of us. I remember that specific matchup against Jokic and his team. The stakes were so high, and the tension was incredible. I remember getting so annoyed at one of the opposing players, I can't recall his name right now, because he kept doing that little celebration, mimicking Carmelo Anthony's iconic three-finger head tap. It was infuriating. And it wasn't just casual annoyance, it was visceral. I knew that if we lost, the entire narrative would shift, and the media would be crowning Jokic as the undisputed king of basketball. And I was sitting there, mentally screaming, no. No way. I felt that desperation and that hope so intensely. It was one of the greatest basketball games I have ever watched in my entire life, hands down. The tension, the stakes, the performances, it was all incredible. And it wasn't just me feeling that way, even Kev. Durant came out after the game and said it was probably the best game he had ever been a part of. That speaks volumes. I've been meaning to go back and rewatch that entire game because it was just so insane, so packed with momentum swings and iconic moments. And then, of course, there was the gold medal game against France, with Steph hitting that dagger three-pointer to seal the deal. It was poetic. And the fact that it was actually competitive was the key ingredient. In years past, it was sometimes a bit of a foregone conclusion. The US would show up, steamroll everyone, and win gold, and it was just expected. It wasn't particularly interesting because it felt like we were just little brothering the rest of the world. There was no real drama, it felt like a formality. But this time? It felt like the team was in perfect balance. It wasn't just a collection of talent, it was a real team that had to overcome genuine adversity and rise to the occasion. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm this massive soccer aficionado. I'm not going to pretend I know the ins and outs of every single player on the roster or that I've been following their careers. That would be as ridiculous as everyone else who suddenly pretends to be an expert. I understand the sport, I have a baseline knowledge, but I'm not going to act like I've been keeping tabs on what Paraguay has been up to in their training camps or what their tactical setup is. I honestly don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. I'm pretty sure the broadcasters were saying it one way, and I was like, is that right? Am I crazy? So, I'm just being honest about my level of fandom. But even with that honesty, I think it is undeniably cool to watch a massive global event like this together. It's a shared experience. It's that same feeling I get when we all gather around for the big NFL football games, especially the standalone primetime matchups. It's a sense of community. I love live streaming those games for that exact reason. It feels like we are all watching the exact same thing at the exact same time, reacting together. We're all part of a bigger event, a collective moment in time. Even when the game itself isn't great, it's still fun to be part of that communal experience. I remember streaming a Broncos-Raiders game that had absolutely no business being a standalone primetime game. We were all just sitting there watching, asking ourselves, what are we even watching right now? It was terrible. But we were all terrible together. And then you have games like that bizarre Packers-Eagles game at Lambeau, which was just a weird, low-scoring, defensive slugfest in the freezing cold. Everyone was confused. And then, of course, you get the truly amazing ones, like watching the Seahawks take on the Rams, where I was sitting there with my jaw on the floor thinking, did we just witness one of the most insane football sequences we've ever seen? That crazy two-point conversion that was picked you. P and returned, we were all reacting in real time, completely in sync, just asking ourselves what we had just witnessed. And that's exactly how it felt watching Team USA on this global stage. It felt like we were all connected by this shared experience. And that, to me, is a really cool thing. It's far more than just the sport itself. So yeah, if Team USA can keep this momentum going and keep playing great soccer, they'll be giving us a lot to root for. It's a pretty cool thing to be a part of. I'll always be a sucker for a good underdog story. I love it when everyone counts a team out, writes them off, says they're not good enough, and then they go out there and prove everyone wrong. That's a mentality I've held my entire life. It's an instant way to win me over. The only team I've ever truly followed that was just undisputed, top-level elite from the get-go was the Golden State Warriors during their dynasty. I remember watching them and thinking, wow, this is so strange. I wondered if this was what it felt like to be a Yankees fan in the 90s or a Patriots fan during the Brady era, just a weird, unfamiliar feeling of dominance. And even that was different because I had been a fan of theirs long before they started winning championships. It was a natural build-up. It was just surreal to experience. Team USA basketball gave me that same feeling. It was like, oh, you think you're better? That's cute. Wait until we actually start playing. It was just a really cool, electric atmosphere. I'm hoping for a repeat of that magic with the Soccer World Cup. That would be incredible. It would be a really cool national experience that brings everyone together. So, I'm really curious to hear from you guys. Did you watch the game? How did you feel about it? Does it matter to you? Are you invested in this, or is it just background noise? Even if you're not the biggest soccer fan, do you still find yourself caring about the result? Do you feel that sense of excitement? I'm genuinely curious about your perspective. Let me know what your experience was like. And let me know if you want me to make some videos and break down the matches. I read every single comment. Whether you agree with me or vehemently disagree, I want to hear it. Let's get into some discussions, maybe even a few arguments. But ultimately, the goal is just to have some fun. Please consider subscribing to the channel. We are building an amazing community right here, and I would absolutely love to see you become a part of it. My goal is to create a community where we all feel connected, a place we are all genuinely excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to achieving that. Also, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, it genuinely helps with visibility and the algorithm, and I really do appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.